Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an Object Show fan that has barely watched any Object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup, the series where we discuss Object Show episodes right after watching them. Whether they're new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, it is episode 75, which means that it is officially a special, which means that we can take a look at a show, and I take a look at the most popular show that I can't take a look at based on regular rules, right? So a show that I released in the past that was really popular, that I can't watch because it's not receiving new episodes as of a moment. Technically, I did that yesterday. However, that doesn't count because that's the Dark Zone episode. I didn't want to give it the proper coverage. So, we're gonna do that. However, before we do that, there is of course a thing that we gotta talk about, which is BFDIE. Yes, indeed, the weekly episode of BFDIE released yesterday at a later time than it usually does. Either way, I wasn't covering it yesterday, but I couldn't have covered it yesterday. But yeah, I mean, there's not much to really say here. BFDI 3 is titled Everyone's Enemies. The thumbnail seems very much so inspired off of the BFDI 1A thumbnail, so we'll see what goes on. It's shorter than the other two, but yeah, I don't know. Let's see what Jack and Jellyfish have got cooking for us this week. Alright then, let's go, and then we can take a look at the show that we're going to take a look at, which will be Moss. Okay, BFDI 3 though. Alright, BFDIE 3, indeed it is, an episode. I feel like now the you know, that initial discussion, piece that BFDIE had for episodes 1 and 2, I feel like that's roughly out of the way, right? Like, now we can kind of proper talk about just BFDIE as it is in a situation, right? As this weekly series, and overall, is it good for a weekly series? I feel like it is. It keeps everybody relatively interested because, like, if it wasn't weekly, I feel like, yeah, it would definitely be a little bit more complicated nowadays. Because it's like, there just is, there's just a lot of entertainment out there, right? With Object Show, they release relatively frequently, so it's like, I mean, having something like this last too long, you know, like a month between episodes, and like the original BFDI was, I don't know if we could get away with it, especially because, I mean, it has way less contestants and everything, but yeah, this kind of keeps the interest relatively flowing, right? Like, you'll see the interest pick itself back up, and that way, for at least that month or two, you can have, you know, people be consistently pretty interested in the characters, you know, and that's eventually going to build some fondness towards them, right? Which I think is cool. But yeah, we end up discovering what Needy's liquid actually is. It's some sort of evil juice that turns you so evil that it murders somebody, and then you proceed to die immediately after. It's like a crash out poison. So we know about that. And yes, so there's how many contestants left? There's about 10 contestants left. So 2 people get to be safe to start, because they have to pick up a necklace. Because they're doing a bracket, so they need 8 people, and 10's too many, right? So, okay, that's fair enough. Then Needy's safe, because, of course, we need to find a way for Needy to be safe by doing nothing. Sidewalk is also safe by just threatening the announcer 1 million times. But, yeah, how did Rose die? How would Rose die falling? There's no way. But, yeah, anyway, so we end up having those two be safe, and that means that everybody else is doing a bracket, like just a 1v1, pretty much, on a bossing ring, and you try to survive. This is kind of a BFDI challenge. It's not, I don't think it's a BFDI challenge in this exact way. However, BFDI, right when David joined, did have the staring contest challenge. I remember this. And like, that staring contest challenge did use this kind of similar. It was also the reverse though, where winners face each other instead of losers face each other. It's like, it's a spin on a challenge that they did. But yeah, Rose ends up facing Beach Ball in round number 1. Winner safe, and loser goes to the next round. Rose just takes Needy and pops the Beach Ball with it, which is unfortunate. And then Toothpaste versus Sticker, they end up, you know, being enemies now because Toothpaste decided so. Sticker ends up just kind of chasing them around forever. However, unfortunately for Sticker does not have any semblance of capabilities when it comes to turning around. When you are running at the same speed as somebody in a circle, you have to turn around. That way you can catch them on the on the way back. However, this is not something that we have learned yet. So yeah, quite unfortunate there from Sticker. But yeah, we end up having Ruler versus Jammy. Jammy is supposed to compete for Ruler, but Jammy's eventually set up against Ruler, so it doesn't really work. But yeah, either way, Sidewalk ends up murdering Needy, who it was Ruler, so Jammy ends up accidentally winning. Ruler gets upset at this, but yeah, I mean, I don't fucking know. But yeah, the announcer has picked itself up a new a new mode with Spiky, so that way we can't get threatened anymore by Sidewalky. David versus Fern. It's the next battle with Fern, which has a hilariously tiny amount of screen time in this episode, by probably the least by a considerable margin. Ends up accidentally having a knife thrown at David, which makes them lose. And then, yeah, Sticker gets absolutely done. Sticker gets demolished in this episode. They suffocate like 3 times. Because, like, the way that the sticker works is that, like, there's the sticker body that has the limbs, but there's the sticker, right? That has, the proper... that has the face on it, so those two can get divided, and that's how Sticker ends up functioning. So overall, it's a pretty solid character design. We end up having here the next and Green Face ends up getting introduced. I guess I don't know if this is a character that existed. It probably did in an ad before, but yeah, they get popped for the sake of an ad because you can have a repellent against popping, you know. So that's interesting. Semi-finales, we end up having. Ruler woos Jammy versus Sticker. Sticker chases them around for ages, but remember, it's Sticker. So they will be tripping on Toothpaste and eventually just getting that hard stepped on 1,000,000 times until eventually the jam oozes out and Sticker drowns in it, which is kind of crazy. Last second, Sidewalky tries to save David. No, tries to murder David. But yeah, because they get banned. Because somebody complained. Who complained? I don't know. Somebody complained. Somebody was like, yo, these people competing is lame. And the announcer was like, oh, I thought it'd be cool. But it's like, oh, no, it's not. So it's like, okay, fine. Then I'll fucking remove it. Whatever. Right? So, yeah, I mean, hey, at least, you know, receptive to feedback. Good job, announcer. Good job. But yeah, we end up having... So many people died. Sticker died like 1,000,000 times in this episode. The amount deaths per Sticker, like Sticker deaths per episode, has gone up massively. But yeah, last second Beach Ball eventually gets popped by the announcer chasing them in the staring contest with David, which means that David wins, and the final battle ends up being, you know, Beach Ball versus Sticker, the 1v1 between the two cheating quote unquote buddies. They weren't really buddies, but they were kind of buddies. But yeah, they end up being together, having a super somber moment until at the very last second they end up having the battle. Protective Shield versus the popping machine. Turns out that the protective shield doesn't actually work, so Beach Ball comes back, but they get eliminated. They get flung. They don't seem to work proper. Like, of course, they're too floaty. So then there's a massive fan that just flies them away. Beach Ball says that they've apparently never done any harm in their life. Again, apparently they did a lot of harm in BFDI Mini. I gotta watch like the latest BFDI Mini. I don't know what's up with it. What's going on? Are these two different Beach Balls? I don't know. I mean, this is kind of suspicious. But yeah, because I think Toothpaste are from the same thing as well. But I think that Toothpaste also acted kind of different. Like, those are the two characters that arrived in minis. I don't know. I think it's kind of... There's a semblance of weirdness going on, alright? For sure. But, yeah. So, we end up having the... vote for your favorite contestant. So apparently the way that this works is every episode it simply adds onto the votes of every previous episode. So you can vote like one time per episode. As far as I'm aware, as far as I've heard, okay, because people count them, it seems like that David is the leader, which is obvious at the end of the day. I mean, unfortunate, because I don't think David is the best character in my opinion. My favorite characters I think I like Sticker. I'm not gonna lie. I like Sticker. They have enough of a balance of being kind of tactical, right? And like kind of dangerous, kind of tactical, kind of fun, but at the same time having a character quirk, being a little bit more relaxed, you know, not in any extreme, and they also can get beat up, right? They can beat up and they can get beat up, right? So that's why I think that sticker is, personally, I think my go. However, yeah, I mean, David would probably get the votes from an average audience more, because they are, you know, just kind of the character that's not one of the characters we don't know about, even though, like, we're starting to know about it, but you gotta let some time for these thoughts to marinate, you know. But yeah, we end up having that being BFDIE 3 indeed. So yeah, we have our final credit scene with the fellas doing random things, and the post-credit scene with Ruler not putting on an announcer costume, then everybody else having the announcer costume on. But yeah, overall, I think this is solid. This was a pretty solid episode. It definitely keeps itself up with the vibe. You know, it's kind of one of those. It's fun. There's not too much like to it, in the sense that there's not too much to exactly, you know, extrapolate. You know, it's just kind of like, yo, these are the characters, this is how they are, and this is what they would do, right? And the announcer is fun. The announcer is kind of the one character that you can kind of debate. Is the announcer getting written well? I think the announcer is definitely getting written well. They have this right level of receptiveness to exactly what they care about, and nothing more, right, that the announcer always had. So yeah, I would say, yeah, overall it's a solid job. Overall, I think BFDI is doing a solid job at this mission. Again, like, a lot of people might disagree with the mission statement, you know, they'll be like, no, give us more algebraically. But like, in general, I think that this is solid, you know. It does what it wants to do pretty well. So yeah, good job BFDI 3 on being the 3rd episode of BFDI. Now we can head into the actual special part of the episode. Okay, alright, I just needed to drop BFDIE 3 because, you know, it's BFDIE. We got some Jack and Jellyfish. Alright, let's go. Let me officially introduce it. Alright, the next show that we're going to be talking about, and the show that marks the episode 75 special, is Moss. So, Moss is a series created by polypawns 5 years ago, at least over 5 years ago. Polypawns, he's a creator that has 102,000 subscribers as of current. But yes, indeed, the 2 episodes of Moss ever released. I believe that Moss is cancelled. I don't think that Moss is in any active development. I don't think this is a hiatus. I believe this is a cancellation. However, yeah, I mean, Moss, this is Moss 1 ends up having 4.4 million views. And outside of BFDI, II, Object Overload, the Russian one, and the Animatic Battle, is the most viewed Object Show episode, and for a while, up until the II finale, actually, until the II finale released like a year ago, it was the longest episode with over 1 million views. It was for a proper 4-year stretch of time, it was the longest popular Object Show episode around. It has now been overtaken by it got overtaken by the II finale by a minute, and then eventually the last couple of BFDI episodes, I think, freaking T-Ball 20, and also especially BFDIA 23 hour long, that now ends up being the longest episode in general, take over it. So, Moss 1, pretty big deal of a video. It is titled something along the lines of a rainy day. Let's go, let's watch it, let's talk about it a couple of years late. Alright, welcome to the discussion piece for Moss 1, one of the biggest Object Show episodes in history. This is one of the biggest ones in history. Again, like, this episode held the record out of the fellow big names for being the longest for ages up until the latest releases. So, like, there's definitely something here. This was a record holder, right, for a long period of time. So, as a record holder, we have to figure out, how is this episode 46 minutes? Well, let's look at the time spread of it. So, in general, the contestants are hanging about and doing their whole shenanigans for about 13 minutes, until eventually we end up discovering Actually, no. About 13 minutes until eventually we end up finding an asteroid in the sky. Okay, so it's about 30 minutes of them just waffling. Then after that, we end up having the meteor comes in, and up until the host gets introduced from there into the host showing up and waking up, it's about an extra 5 minutes, okay, of the asteroid, coming in, crashing down. The fella comes in, so yeah. Then the host introduces the show. As it is, and about the 20-minute mark, we end up having the team forming start. Okay, so from 20 minutes up until when the hell is so by the time the challenge ends up starting to get situated, it's about 33 minutes in. So you see, that's a 13-minute long team setup, which is a while. A 13-minute long team setup is significant. And then after the challenge ends up getting set up, we end up having a roughly, from about 34-ish, having the challenge last about 10 minutes until it officially ends. And then the last few minutes are the voting screen and the post-credits scene. So you see, it mainly happens in the early phase, that those initial 13 minutes, and then in the team picking that makes it really long, right? And why is it doing that? Well, here's the deal. At the beginning, it has to do it. Those 13 minutes, at the end of the day, they do feel like they do generally need to be there, because it's a large cast object. A large cast object show always has a trouble in episode 1 with the dilemma of we had to introduce every character, right? Like, they had to introduce literally everybody. And the way that these shows historically tend to do this is they take the plan of just having them do stuff pre-host showing up. That way you get to see them act naturally in a natural situation. Now you can go like, okay, this is the person that's like this, right? And if they're the person that's like this, then they can, you can start to picture their personality in your mind. So that's how these shows tend to do it, right? However, of course, interactions can be a bit long, and they can interact with each other, and also having an interaction that eventually covers up what for Moss is a 56-member cast is, of course, going to need quite a lot of interactions. So you see it to be quite affected here. You'll see it be quite affected in Animatic Battle, where I believe it takes somewhere around the range of 21 minutes for Animatic to actually show up. I don't know, but I think it's a while. And like you just see that it just takes a while for the host to actually show up in the things, because they have to do that pre-introduction. And then the team forming. I believe the team forming is where, for me, it kind of faded a little bit this episode. I feel like this episode is the longest. It probably shouldn't be. I feel like you could probably half that team selection, because like at the end of the day, the way, like, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a gigantic fan of team picking, because I think a lot of what people do with team picking, it's like when they're kind of going, like, it's kind of a lot of the things saying that, yo, you should join that team. Yeah, yo, you should join our team. Yeah, right, and then you switch to the other people. Yo, you should join our team. No, and it's like there's not really that much variation. Like, you can see kind of the logic that they come in, right? But like, it doesn't need to be that much, So personally, I think that is one of the ways that I would chop down on length. The challenge being about 10 minutes, yes, that's good. Challenge being about 10 minutes, that's good, because then of course the other episodes are roughly going to be like, 10 to 20. So like, the challenge itself is solid. It's just that early, just that early hurts so much, because there's just so much time. Like, it's 20 minutes before the team picking starts. Like, it's so long. And yeah, but like, it's needed characterization, probably. I feel like it definitely, again, it's definitely on the slower end, especially when the host gets introduced and like the meteor, like, and they're trying to figure out what to do with it for like 5 minutes, and they all just fail anyway, right? Because of fucking meteor. But yeah, that is. Yeah, it's something. In terms of the other segments, first of all, the technical element before we actually get into the show itself. Animation, it is a relatively it's a very smooth animation in terms of it really doesn't change quality nearly at all. It's very, very much so animated in the same style, and the style itself, however, I don't think has much really. It's not like how do I say this? It's not got any immediately distinctive traits, you know. Like in the subtlety of it, yeah. However, in the proper distinctive traits, like it just kind of looks like an object, you know. Like it's not too big. Like their limbs are a little big. You know, they got the circular arms, the leg, like they're all kind of like that, you know. The assets are like they got a pretty good balance of detail and not detail, right? Like, you know, it's pretty solidly rounded out. I think that eyes are a little bit bigger than I think what the usual would go. With it, the contestants, I think also, yeah, they just have kind of thicker lines a little bit than I feel like a lot of other shows do, so they end up feeling smaller. However, like in the actual general, it doesn't matter that much. And yeah, in terms of audio, I did feel like personally, again, it's one of those. I did personally feel that the music sometimes a little loud. However, I am gonna say that it was perfectly understandable because, well, first of all, there's excellent captioning work done. I love subtitles with a little bit of personality to them, and those ones definitely were captions with a lot of personality. Whoever wrote them, and then. Also, beyond that, the audio is just very clear because the voice acting is also very much so solid. It's good VAing, which allows it to, of course, stand out across music. Anyways, all right, okay. So let's. You know, we got to talk about our 56-member cast. So we have Storybook being the first character that speaks, as it's the first line. I can't understand what you are. Because I swear you're called Storybook and you told a story, and then eventually when they were picking teams, like, yo, what's up? Let's pick the thesaurus. I was like, yo, hold on, you weren't a thesaurus, you're a Storybook, or are you not? Or do you just change a name? Did you just change a name, or did they just call you that for no reason? I don't know, but yeah, you seem to be a little bit. Yeah, you're like kind of the. You're the wisdom character, you know. You'll be able to give fashion information. You'll be able to give stories. Yeah, the kind of the character that when they've got, if somebody would ask them to say a thing, they would definitely say it. Yeah. Then we have ourselves Shapey. Okay, Shapey is actually quite important. So Shapey is definitely one of the main characters in terms of like immediate presence, because they're the one with one of the most immediately apparent ideas. So Shapey is a relatively calm and collected fella. There's like, you know, they're relatively nice. They're like in the nice group of people, but they are also a creating machine. They create. They can kind of make stuff. They can fetch out from within them kind of an item that they can make, right? So they can make kind of tiny items. They can't make stuff that's too big unless they lock in or something, because they made a go-kart for the challenge. But like, other than that, yeah, they did their job, which is interesting. So yeah, they're very interesting. You know, they got this unique trait, they got this unique capability. We also have an alien pineapple. Doesn't get to do really a lot. They seem to be much. They also, yeah, they're very calm and collected as well. Like that group ends up kind of forming out their whole situation. Elgu is, dude, yeah, you see, it's just with 56 characters, even though they get some screen time, you just, like, my brain doesn't have enough screen time, you know. They were like more energetic, I think, than the other fellas. They're like, they're a little bit more of a runner, I think. They wonder a bit more, and they run a bit more, than the others. They're like a bit more JC. We got BFDI mouth that's a little bit more upset. For some reason, they're forming a gigantic stack of pencils. Not exactly sure why. However, yeah. Then we have the pencil sharpener, who has some goofy looking teeth. They are trying to, you know, sharpen pencils. They're very overprotective about any pencils that they find. They really want pencils to be in tip-top shape. However, we don't get to see them a lot in this episode. Then we have Clover. Clover in this. Clover might be the most generic character I think I've ever seen. Clover is like, you know how people get pissed sometimes at Clover from II being like, no, that's bad, because Clover just said, oh wow, I'm lucky. No, but like this is that. Clover's apparently lucky. Like, I don't know if Clover is actually lucky or they just say they're lucky, but because of the team saying, oh, they're in first place because they have Clover on them, okay, I think that presumes that the Clover was lucky, so like the raindrops weren't hitting them or whatever. So like, I think that Clover pretty bad. I will admit, currently they didn't do anything except say that they were lucky. So no, not really a lot of personality going on here. Then there's this freaking tank. I don't like this gas tank, whatever you call it, like this toxic tank. I don't. This you didn't do anyway. You did like 2 lines. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know. You're called. Wait, what you called? Are you a toxic tank? You're called banana juice. Why are you called banana juice? What? Yo, why? Where's the banana? Why banana juice in a tin can? In a tin? Yo, what? Okay, whatever. Then we have the breadcrumb. The breadcrumb is also, I think, one of the more calmer characters. You saw how they weren't panicking as much alongside the other group of fellas. So yeah, they seem to be a little bit more logical. However, I do think that they give me vibes of character that kind of doesn't has their feelings hurt a little bit easier. Paper Crown is I guess a little bit more the question-y type character, right? They're like, yo, what's the point of this? Why are we doing this? Oh, okay, right? Like, they ask quite a bit, so I think that's what's happening. The garbage character, they seem to, I don't, what do you think I know? The garbage character, pretty positive, I think, all around. They were pretty happy to let the small fella join their team. So, I mean, yeah, they seem like the more positive type of character. Which is alright. And then we've got just so many people. How do y'all do this? Then having the sock, who is kind of the sock got like 2 lines. Yeah, they kind of give me the dumb character vibes. That just comes in super ready and just doesn't do much. So yeah, I don't. They didn't do much. And same thing goes for like the slime cube that has like a nail on them. They got 1 line, I think, in that episode. And other than that, they're just sat huddling up. I mean, the way that their character is expressed is relatively chill. They seem to be kind of unbothered about a lot of things. So that's what I'm going to go with for now. So, okay. Then, Furry Ball. Okay, so Furry Ball ends up being kind of the super cutesy... the super cutesy, oh wow, you know, they kind of make cute sounds, and they have the high pitched voice, you know, they're kind of cute in the definition of the term. They're kind of so yeah, they get quite a bit of screen time. They inherently lead their team sort of by niceness, because that if Furry Boss said something, then that means we gotta listen to it, right? Because it's a nice person deserves it, quote unquote. So that's kind of the team that ends up being formed around it. But not like Furry Ball is the most amazing thing. So they're not the most amazing team leader. So I don't know how that's gonna go. And they kind of team up with Cabbage, which they're sort of friends with. Cabbage is super quiet in general. Like, I feel like they don't talk much. Gonna be honest. Are they quiet? I don't know what they are. You know what? I don't know. What is Cabbage? Yo, what's Cabbage? Like, not as an item. Like, just, what personality are we giving this guy? They felt quieter, but they feel quieter next to Furry Ball, who's loud. They're kind of chill. They're just chill. You know? Yeah. I say chill vibes. I say chill vibes all around there from Cabbage. Then we have some other fellas. Unity, I think by far is probably the laziest design here. You know, for a show that's like very much so got its own thing going on, I do gotta point out that, Unity is just the Unity logo. Like, there was not even really an attempt at redesign. Like, there was not an attempt at designing it. Like, the Unity logo as a contestant is interesting because, the Unity logo has kind of this weird shape to it. But, we just took the Unity logo. We didn't do anything with it. But yes, how are they as a person? Do you think I know? I do not have... I do not know. Then we have the small fella. The small fella is pretty nice overall. They seem to kind of just want to, they want to be a part of the group. So they're like, they get along with Garbage pretty well, because Garbage allows them. So yeah, they're kind of, they try to help. I think absolutely the small fella. You're called Pencil Lad, I believe. Yes. So yeah, they seem to try to be a helper overall. Get into it, get into the actions by being small. A bit high energy. Then we have the clock fella. You're called, what are you called? You're called, the name, Spinny. Okay, so you're like a spinning time clock. you've got one of the most interesting scenes in the episode, because apparently they can stop time, and they use that to pick up an umbrella from somebody one time, right? So that is what they can do, and they seem to be, however, kind of the more they know what they know their power, you know, they're like, we shall not use this, you know. It's kind of like when Golf Ball discovers a yo-yo, like I say, we need to make sure to use it for good and not bad, right? So they have a cool power, they're conservative with it though. And then we end up having 8.8 ball. They're kind of course, every show needs an 8 ball. This is probably one of the shows that pioneered that being a thing. They like very specific numbers. They have the thing where they mention very specific numbers, and they're not like 8 ball in the sense where they don't care about anything. They're like mildly more pissed. They sound like they're mildly upset literally all of the time. That's kind of what's going on with this 8.8 ball. So, okay, then we have AirPod. AirPod is a V character, of course. Probably definitely the main event of the episode, I would say, which makes sense because they're probably the character that got eliminated. But yeah, AirPod is just a generic, not generic, but like super bully. Right? Like, it's not a generic bully, but it's like very bully. You know? Like, they're kind of, they're rich, apparently. They have they have fat stacks. So they got a shit ton of money, and they just think that they're better than everybody else, and they're forcing people to be on their teams, and they're just a massive superiority complex going on there, right? And literally nobody likes them. They're annoying. They hurt people for no reason, including their own team. They're not even playing to win. They're just playing to look cool, right? Like, they're just there to be a nuisance, right? So, I mean, nobody likes AirPod. Literally nobody. I don't think, they have 0 friends. So, it's not amazing. And yeah, they end up continuing to dip away in anger. Then we end up having, what the hell are you called? I do not remember this next character's name. Ghost Pepper. Sure. Why is it a ghost pepper? Is a ghost pepper purple? No, it's not. Wait, what? Isn't that ghost pepper like just a pepper? Whatever. But anyways, they're a flying contestant. What do they do? They have like 2 scenes, I think. Do they do anything in those 2 scenes? No. They give me kind of lightning vibes. However, for no reason, like, there's not anything that give me lightning vibes other than the fact that they fly and they're like mildly more attentive, but don't do that much. You know, that's kind of what I'm imagining right now. However, I have no idea. Okay, who else do we have? Okay, we have Geary. Oh yeah, Geary. So Geary is kind of relative. Yeah, Geary's happy to do things. You know, they have some preconceived notions, you know, they have some opinions that they stick by, kind of not liking Creeper and stuff. However, they're pretty excited to get into it. They'll be like, yo, guys, let's go climb a tree, right? Let's go join the team. You know, like, they kind of gas themselves up. They're like, yeah, I'm doing this thing. You know, it's like, yeah. So, that's kind of what Gary's been up to. Okay, then we end up having Guacamole Volcano. Guacamole Volcano is kind of that character that nobody really knows what's going on with them, but they kind of just are in the situations. I mean, the vibe, it seems, right, like, they don't have many scenes properly solo. They kind of have the scene with themselves joining the team, right? Where people are like, yo, who are you? Like, are you on our team? And yeah, I am. So yeah, they just kind of they seem to insert themselves into groups of people right now, and not too much else. So we need to see Charcoal. Charcoal gets quite a bit of screen time. Charcoal is interesting. I like the detail that is charcoal and not just coal, because like, they seem to be. They're the type of character that they seem to really want appreciation. They're like, nobody ever appreciates coal. Everybody thinks that coal sucks, and I want to be appreciated. So you see, anytime that they got appreciated, you know, like, they got picked, it's like, yo, finally some appreciation for once. And they're very defensive of themselves and what they are, because they seem to be, you know, they're like more. They're just defensive, right? Because they think that it's worth a lot. But I really like the detail that it's charcoal instead of coal, because charcoal is like the Minecraft thing. It's like the Minecraft replacement to coal, or like scrapped or something, right? So it's kind of like, it's not. It was like coal, but even lamer. It was like lame coal. So yeah, Blue Sphere and Beanbat, these two don't do anything. No, do they do anything? No, they really don't. They're like, I think they're always together. I don't think they get a scene where they're not together. I think Beanbag is theoretically the more mischievous one. They make more mischievous faces, but they just kind of join teams together. They're like, yo, can we join? It's like, okay, sure. And that's about it. Then they kind of just hang out with the team. I don't remember them doing that much. Maybe Beanbag part of the mass brawl for the first Umbrella? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't remember. But yeah, these two don't do much, and they're also just kind of generic shapes as characters, so they don't remind me of a lot. Then we got Creeper. Creeper is kind of doing, it's a Creeper. It's one of those characters that, like, obviously doesn't have a lot going for them in terms of, like, personality style. So you can see how a lot of people kind of treat Creeper, in the same way that, like, characters treat Rocky, right? In something like BFDI, right? Because you can see that, like, people treat Creeper as, like, this kind of, well, I don't know, you don't have any way of expressing thoughts, realistically speaking, so we're kind of just going to treat you kind of like a doll thing. We're going to kind of, like, tell you to do stuff when we need it to do stuff, right? Like, it's kind of like a half tool. It's a tool that you speak to nicely, is the way that we speak to Creeper. And the same way that a lot of people, like, in B, for example, spoke to Rocky, be like, yo, Rocky, we need you to barf right now. Yo, wouldn't that be so epic? Right? Like, they try to kind of talk down because Rocky doesn't have an effective, immediate form of communication, right? If that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, so that's kind of the character that Creeper ends up being. They, of course, do some hisses. Then we have, what else do we have? Orange Peel. Yes, we do have Orange Peel. What is Orange Peel? Does Orange Peel speak? Bro, I feel like this character do not speak. I feel like this character did not have a line. Do you have a line? No, I feel like they're kind of the character that's just there to be a blob. Everybody's like, okay, sure, blob is here. Yeah, I do not remember them talking. Bender's Sticky Notes and Potted Plant. These two are kind of like buddies. What did they do? Because I know that Sticky Notes, I get confused, Sticky Note and the other character that's important. Because, like, dude, hold on. I get Flipnote, right? Sticky Note and Flipnote are like two different characters. They're like the green one, the yellow one. Yo, what was the yellow one doing? Yo, what did they? Whoa, yo, what are you? I mean, I know that they punched the thing pretty far. They were getting stronger. They were like on a strength journey alongside the Potted Plant. But then now what are they doing? They made it. Oh god, trying to get my brain to remember here. They don't do a lot. They're kind of. I feel like they were more nicer. They were a little bit more logical. They were a little bit nicer. They're pretty, yeah, they're pretty solid. And then there's Fimble and Sweet Gum Seed. So Sweet Gum Seed is kind of the super. They're very adventurous. You know, they're like, we must go adventure now. Let's climb the mountain. Let's go to Mount Everest. Let's go. Right, they're very much so like go places. You know, they're about to go places. And then there's Fimble, who Sweet Gum Seed kind of drives along. Fimble doesn't really know what's actually going on. However, they're like, you know, they're kind of buddies. But like, you can see when they get separated, Fimble is actually kind of sad as well. So like, Fimble enjoys it. Thinks it's probably pointless, but does still enjoy the excursions. So yeah, those two make a fun duo. And then there's QR code. What? The same thing goes for barcode, but I think it shows up later. These two characters don't know a damn thing about them. They don't do much at all. They don't do much of anything. Gonna be absolutely for real. We've got Wig. Oh yes, we got Wig. So what does Wig do? Wig ends up being they're kind of the nonchalant character that doesn't really. Yeah, they're a nonchalant character. They speak in this kind of like pretty toneless voice. They kind of speak in this like, they don't necessarily not care about the things that happen, but they kind of say them in like a toneless way, right? In a toneless way, and they're relatively neutral and they're hard to get angered. That's kind of what Wig is. It's also an interesting character idea because, like, hold on, how does the Wig, how do you know, how does this character work? Like, are they the Wig, or are they the head that the Wig happens to possess? You know, like, whatever. And then there's also the gumball machine. So apparently the gumball machine has stale gumballs until they died, and then they stopped having stale gumballs. But yeah, what's going on with them? They're like the character that gets bullied for no reason, even though they're like surprisingly normal and logical. But the characters that aren't normal and logical just decided, no, yeah, this is the one we're gonna bully. Probably because they have gumballs and they would like to eat them. So I think that's what's going on with them. But yeah, they're relatively compact and thought out. Which is solid. A shit ton of pencils start flying out. So why did they start flying out? Because of remember the giant pile that was getting made, and then of course the explosion was really big because I don't know, creeper explosions are just really big in this universe. So they end up having the mass horde of pencils coming out like a watcher, and it ends up being kind of the chaos ends up happening. Okay, I think most of the characters get introduced by this point. However, there's still a couple more that we don't actually get to see. Until a little bit, because there's just so many. There's just so many characters, bro. Yes, there's still more. Yeah, of course there's more. There's always more. There's like 7 more or something. Propeller. Is kind of the saved. They're what are they? They're happy to save the day. You know, they're kind of joyous to an extent. You know, they're like, yo, we're gonna go out here, save our friends, you know, from the evil, and they end up doing that pretty well. And you know, they're relatively happy. Then we have Boot. Boot is kind of that mysterious character that like some people don't really know how to connect with them that much, right? They're kind of like the non-spoken character that doesn't have face and limbs as well. They're usually, I would say, a little bit more fuel for gags. You know, like they don't not too much going on. You know, right? So that means that like they end up kind of being more fuel for gags. I'm not too big of a fan of these characters. But then counts of 56, sure. You know, like why not? There's another character that pops up soon. Yeah, fucking Inkling. Oh my god, forgot about Inkling. Inkling was actually relatively relevant because Inkling ends up being the character that kind of the thing. How does Inkling work? Inkling speaks in text boxes, which I think is cool because like they are a character like that who also, you know, because they're representative of the way that the games work, so they speak it in like the Inkling language. However, then they pop up kind of like in the games properly, right? So kind of like that ends up being a thing. And they end up leading their team in this kind of weird way where they just end up kind of picking people out for random reasons, and they just go like, look, I don't know what's going on in this weird head of yours, but like, if it's the way to go, then I guess it's the way to go. So I mean, alright then, everybody goes along with Inkling. Yeah, Inkling just kind of has some random plans. They do have a lot of the same tactics that you actually have in the freaking there's noises in the background. You're gonna hear those, my bad. But a lot of the same like characteristics that Inkling has in Splatoon, so they're able to turn into a squid, very capable of shooting. They have the same weapons, including the bomb, the explosion, like pretty much all of that stuff. They have all of it, right? And with it, pretty unique in general. I mean, like, they're unique in the sense that they are not an object in an object show. They're not that unique in the sense that they're just a character in an object show, right? Like the character itself isn't actually that unique, right? It's generally pretty vague, right? Like, it doesn't actually change that much. But, like, other than that, I would say it's pretty solid. Okay, who else is there? Hold on. Give me a moment. I need to sort this out, because I took a break because I had to do a bunch of dumb shit. Oh yeah, there's the freaking Hexnut. Hexnut doesn't really do anything. Hexnut kind of, you see him sliding down the mountain, you see him kind of hanging about. They don't really speak that much. They just kind of exist, and their existence kind of like they're like the goofy character. I'm trying to find an immediate example. Dude, they're like goo, you know? They do things kind of around, they don't speak that much, but yeah, again, it's one of those characters that's like, I don't know your philosophy, but you do things that are interesting, so yeah, you get to exist. Which is a thing. Then, yeah, we have Thesaurus. Like, that's your name. You're not called, or is Thesaurus in Storybook different character? Hold on. Am I dumb? Is the gag that they just switch name? The gag might just be that they switch name. I didn't catch it. Oh, maybe they're just two different things, and they just look extremely similar. I don't know. I do not have the knowledge in this matter, to be honest. But yeah. Okay, so then who else do we have here? Yeah, we end up having Yeah, so the source is chilling out. No, wait, the source is different because the storybook has 2 lines, 2 squares, and then the source is one. Yo, what? These 2 characters, nah, these 2 characters cannot be allowed to exist. But yes, there's barcode that, as I said, very similar to freaking QR code in the sense that we don't get to see much of them. They seem to be pretty logical, but yeah. Barcode is a bit more serious than QR code is. Static can make static sounds, however, they can't actually speak. So they kind of try to express themselves. People try to understand them. They're kind of like the character archetype that's like, no, people who are a bit weird try to guess what they're saying and be like, oh, you mean this, and then the gag is that it's static ends up looking all rough and like, no, no, you know, but they can't say it. So yeah, then we end up having Sticker. Did I talk about Sticker? I don't remember if I talked about Sticker. I feel like I did, but I also didn't. No, I didn't talk about Sticker yet. Okay, yeah, no, Sticker is the ultimate leading player, but not leading in terms of just the group necessarily, not leading in terms of team. They lead the society in the sense of like, they are super serious. They don't experience much fun. However, that means that their super seriousness, right, kind of allows them to keep it moving. So to calm down in certain situations or to increase seriousness in real situations, right? So they end up kind of doing their whole thing, and end up being the main one who kind of sources out the calm in the whole situation with the meteor, right? Smear frame is super fast. That's pretty much what they are, because they're smear frame, because it's going fast. So they have super speed. And you see, unlike a character like the fella that stops time, we end up having a character like this, very much show-offy, right? In the sense of like, yo, they super fast, and they're gonna go super fast if they can. Like they show off their capability in a shit ton of ways, even when it's not necessarily for the benefit of everybody involved, like how, of course, they ruin this foot race here at the start with all of these people. Twisp apparently has this thing going on with Echo. They're the Echo fighter. I don't remember what that is. I'm going to be 100% honest. I know that's the term for something, but yeah, Twist is kind of running the events. Seems that people maybe don't get into, like, Twist thinks that what he does is more important than it actually is. Echo, however, puts him down too much. It's kind of like that way. Echo puts down Twist too much, and Twist increases themselves too much. So they're both wrong. But yeah, they kind of end up making a interesting-ish situation. Then we have these 3. Floaty, super relaxed. Doesn't have too much to them. They end up just sort of being very polite about everything, even if it's not something that necessarily they would like to. Then there is this box. What were you called? God damn it. Okay, whatever. I don't remember their name. Then there's Seedless Grape. Sorry, Seedless Grape. Kind of fun-seeking character. They're like the fun-seeking character. You know, they're like, I want to participate in a race. I want to be in this team that does fun. I want to participate in this battle. Right? Like they're very much so. They want to participate in games. So yeah, they're fun chasing. They're like the fun chasing character. And then we also end up having, what the hell you call Fluorofoam? Oh, okay. That's a random name. Yeah, Fluorofoam doesn't speak. Didn't say a line specifically in this episode. They're the only character to have like signaled their way. I don't know if it's because they don't speak or if it's for another reason. They do have a mouth. I don't know if they can use it, right? But like they don't speak in this episode, so that automatically puts them in a relatively chill situation. They don't interfere much with much of what happens. So yeah, there's just a random guy there who's yellow. I don't think they move in this video. I don't know about them. I don't even know their name. They're just like a yellow stick figure feeling. Then there's Cup of Glass, Juice, and Line. This trio. I'm trying to get through them a little bit more quickly because there's too many characters. 56 is a lot. Yeah, Cup of Glass is a very logical, very, very kind of thinking character, I would say. You know, definitely tries to de-escalate. I think probably one of the smartest contestants. At least every interaction I saw with Cup of Glass, they seem to relatively have a good idea what's going on. Liney is very quiet. You won't actually realize Liney is in most rooms because they're a line and they're relatively quiet. They say pretty much what they need to, and that's about it for their conversation to keep going, right? Like they're not going to add too many needless details. And Sauce is relatively sociable. They try to socialize with a bunch of people. They with Tomato, who is another character who doesn't do much. They end up kind of scaring Tomato away because they're like, no, you are Sauce and you are me, but crushed. But it's like, no, it's actually not tomato sauce, apparently, but it's something else. But yeah, very sociable character. Then there's Evil Shapey, which is interesting. So they apparently, they're just trying to be evil. They're like the characters that I am evil. And you may not doubt my evilness. They're like Grape from Purgatory, right? They have a couple of interesting ideas. Like, for example, lightning doesn't work on them, as the challenge eventually points out. And not only that, they also seem to... they might, I don't know, it's interesting. Does Evil Shapey has those same object creating capabilities that normal Shapey does? We don't know. However, it's kind of interesting. But anyways, yeah, then the meteor appears, and then we can actually talk about it. So, let's chat about the teams for a moment. Let me quickly clock in here the teams, so that way we can I'm trying to find the spot. Because I'm trying to sort everything out. Okay, so let's start here. A quick chat about the teams. Not too big because we're a bit overboard on time because 56 characters is a lot of them. So we have Team the Gamers. This is the first team to form and therefore the first team to get made. This is AirPods constructed team with a sticker, piston, barcode. Did I talk about piston? Yo, I didn't talk about piston. There's not too much to say about piston, but whatever. Propeller, sauce, a seedless grape, and the floral foam. This team is sort of... they're not actually that random. I feel like this team could do pretty well because they have... like a rough shape around them, because like AirPod wasn't doing anything, so Sticker just kind of was like, yo, join. And we managed to get with Sticker and were you called Sticker? No, you were called Sticker. Wait, were you? There, I don't know, 'cause there's the other one. Whatever. The green one. Yes, they end up kind of like forming a relatively cohesive team that has enough logic and also fun and also capability on it. But yeah, if AirPod leaves, then they're relatively competitive. However, AirPod will kind of make their job to fuck them up. Then we have team squad goals, because apparently that's what a friend group is supposed to have. That's what they're called. So we have Banana Juice, Shapey. Then we have a Clover. We have the other of the Echo. I don't fuck. We have the freaking Vesaurus book fella. The book, and then wait, are you Vesaurus or are you the story? How the fuck am I meant to know? I think you're the source. The pencil sharpener, the planted pot, and then the sticky notes. Okay, and you might be wondering, oh yeah, you should just watch the show. I'm sorry. Like, here's the deal. I could have watched the episode and still not know. Why? Because there's 56 of them. Like, again, I just don't store all of that information that fast. I don't know if you do. I don't know if this is a me problem. Like, I never know. But I feel like it is impossible to bring this much information into your head with one watch, right? Surely. But yeah, I mean, this team's got Shapey in it, which is huge. It's got some characters that want to lead, like the green drop fella. And it seems like the source is pretty smart as well. So, yeah, we got some strong characters like those sticky notes. Yeah, no, this team I think is pretty solidly constructed. Okay, Team Tech. Team Tech is Charcoal, the seed fella, alongside what's a Beanbag, Wig, the Gumball Machine, Unity, probably Storybook, and then the Blue Ball, Blue Circle. Okay, this team looking a little random. I'm not getting too many leadership vibes from it. Maybe Gumball Machine and Wig can kind of subtly nudge the team along, but it's looking kind of mediocre. I feel like this is definitely a team that can lose a challenge relatively easily. I feel like if something goes wrong, I feel like they don't. I don't know if they have the strength to pull themselves back up. I feel like they will go into kind of chaos mode as soon as stuff goes wrong. Team Tangerines, this is the team constructed by Inkling. So it's Cup of Glass, the Clock Fella, the Tomato, the Orange Peel, the Crown, the QR Code, and the Floaty. Picked by entirely random reasons by Inkling. Is this a functional team? It is a team with enough people on it. It has the clock, you're not called clock, you're called Spinny, I think. Yeah, with Spinny and Cup of Glass, which is pretty solid. And Inkling themselves, I think, has also enough reasoning. The other fellas, there is a little bit of randomness on it. However, to be fair, having those like X Factor players where like they're either useless or they're going to be extremely useful is cool. So I think this team has got some decent potential as well. Team Neon, this is the team that actually had their name planned out. It was the team made by the cute thing, the cat, alongside Cabbage. So they end up having the Slime Screw fella with the ball. What were you called? God damn it. It's because of the break that I was introducing the character. I started to catch their names, but now there's break and now I don't remember anyway. Then there's Smear Frame, the Hex Nut, the purple of thing, Coconut, and then they were called like Geo, whatever, the glue fella that runs. This team, this is the Power of Friendship Express. I mean, obviously, you could tell there's a lot of those characters that aren't, like, there's nearly no negative energy actually going on in this team. It's just kind of pure vibes. Power of Friendship teams do pretty well, though, not gonna lie, and I currently don't see a drama causer in this team, except maybe the Slime fella, but yeah, I think this team's pretty solidly constructed. Then we got team I Forgot, BFDI Mouth Sock, the weird yellow thing, Crash Can, freaking Spindle, whatever, fuck, Gimbal, whatever, the Boot, and then the Ghost Pepper, yes. That's team I Forgot. This team, not a big fan of it. I don't really know a lot about any of these. I feel like these characters didn't get enough screen time. It's kind of the meme team. You realize, like, you notice how there's the meme team? They get the meme name I Forgot. They have BFDI Mouth of yellow fella that just stares. They have the kind of those other characters. Like, it feels like this is the type of team that would disband the quickest. Because then like 2 characters get eliminated and it kind of and everybody else leaves, right? Like, I can't see this team I can maybe see this team YOLOing a couple of challenges, but I feel like this team actually survived it for that long. Not too much. Oh yeah, they also have the mini fella, the pencil lead. But yeah, I can't see this team surviving for too long. Like, they have enough people to sort themselves out. However, I think they're going to flop quite a bit. And then Team Blank. This is the team formed by, I think, 8.8 ball, which has Evil Shapey, Guacamole Volcano. They have this freaking Staticky. Then they have Echo, Creeper, and Geary. Random set of people. This is random. Yet again, though, it gives me similar vibes as Team Tangerines. I think they should be capable of having a lot of X Factors, you know? Because, like, with Static, you never know what useful is going to come across. Geary, as we saw, pretty volatile and climbing stuff, for example. Right? Evil Shapey has this whole random set of abilities. Same thing goes with Creeper and Exploding, right? Like, there's a lot of mini abilities here overall throughout the team that are going to allow for interesting things, right? So I'm definitely, I think this team can do solid. Out of just kind of having a lot of potential ideas, and in general, I don't think too many of these are protesters. Like, Evil Shapey's a protester, but I don't think people care too much. But yeah, okay, the challenge. We're talking about the challenge for a little bit. So the challenge itself is that rain is pouring down from the sky, and the droplets that fall on you is each a point. You want to have the least points possible. So you need to solve you need to, of course, stay below something, right? So that means that you have to be have an umbrella or something to cover yourself up. And what the fellas end up doing is taking what ends up being the challenge is that there's only 3 umbrellas, so the teams have to fight over it and all that jazz. So yeah, they end up doing that. However, what they end up doing is So there's a couple of characters that of course could cheese it, such as, for example, if Ghost Pepper, yes, were to fly above the clouds, then they wouldn't get any rain on them. So that's apparently disqualifiable. And then there's also Shapey, who can construct a umbrella from themselves. However, that's also disqualifiable. Yet again, in my opinion, I always think that challenges shouldn't exclude abilities. They should play into them, right? Like, they should make it, okay, you can do this. Why would that not work, right? It's kind of like, for example, you can't just say, oh, yo, don't fly up, by the way. No, just like put a barricade, for example, and that way it's a natural non-function, like, debilitation rather than just a forceful one by the rules. But anyway, the host is relatively nice, so again, the people follow along, right? It's, again, there's a decent amount of mutual respect. The host is trying to host a thing, and the contestant is just trying to play a thing, right? So it's like, okay, sure, we'll play by the rules, right? So, yeah. Then we have our challenge. What do you think of this challenge? I gonna be fully honest here. It's a good challenge in terms of action. Like, you get to see a good chunk of action, which, characters fighting and doing all that jazz. You get to see their abilities in use and everything. So it's a good challenge in terms of that. I don't think it's a great challenge in terms of just a challenge, right? If I would have to put the challenge, I would definitely put it here, though, because it's nice to have such a relatively high intensity challenge after, a super low intensity team building, right? It's not too much going on. So having this high stakes stuff is important. However, I'm going to be 100% honest, I'm not a giant fan of this challenge. The thing that I don't like about this challenge is that there is kind of zero way for me to follow along, right? Like, at the end of the day, I'm seeing some teams with umbrellas, some teams don't have umbrellas, some teams have been umbrellas, and suddenly an hour has passed, and then these fellas don't have umbrellas, but these fellas that have umbrellas fucking don't use it, right? And then this team has just been sitting below the fella. Does that give them more or less, right? Like, it's kind of like I have no perception of how the scoring is going. So I'm just kind of seeing action happen, cannot, because of the time that has passed between those, give a reasonable enough presumption at what the score of it would be. So until it's revealed at the end, I'm kind of like, I don't know. And then eventually the team that loses, I'm still like, okay, I mean, I guess they lost, but I don't, I didn't see enough of them failing. Like, there wasn't a global fail enough for them to really lose and feel like they've lost, right? Like, it's kind of a general situation where it's just not great. So yeah, the gamers end up apparently losing the challenge, and like, you see, it makes for a lot of kind of weird writing, because like at the end, to be 1,000,000% realistic, even if that fight had gotten to happen at the end for the last umbrella, that doesn't matter. What do you get? 3 less points? Like, it's just the amount that this challenge works is, yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I like challenges, that give a more clear display of how, like, the teams are progressing through it, because, yeah, in this challenge, it just felt like I watched 10 minutes of fighting, and then eventually somebody was declared a loser, but, like, I didn't follow along, right? Like, if you asked me at that moment who I thought lost, I don't know, I wouldn't be able to tell you, right? I really wouldn't. So, yeah. They end up being up for elimination. AirPods gotta go. I mean, there's no way that they realistically don't. I don't know how many people actually ended up voting in the time window for Moss. Of course, Moss is 4 million views now. I don't know how many it got back then. But yeah, I mean, realistically, if AirPod doesn't go, that would be a massive shock, because I mean, a big Object Show and the mean character that's obviously just super mean and everybody dislikes him. Yeah, like, there's Sticker that a bunch of people find annoying, but Sticker is kind of like acting as the logic to the unreasonable anger, right? Logical upset to unreasonable anger, right? So, like, in general, I mean, come on. If AirPod doesn't go, I'm gonna be shook. I'm gonna be shook all the way to the core, right? So yeah, all right then. That is my discussion of Moss 1, one of the biggest Object Show episodes ever. But after we talk about Moss 1, it is time to talk about Moss 2, because yes, there was a second one, and that still got a lot of views, over 1 million for sure. It is 17 minutes long. It is just titled Fish. Let's watch the last theoretical episode of Moss, unless there's a random reboot. There's no way. We're not, right? This show's dead. Surely. No, I'm sorry. It's just, I think I've heard that this show's dead. Right? And then, like, there was like a reboot that was attempted and failed. I don't know. Whatever. But, Moss 2, go. Alright, that is the second, and I think last episode of Moss, I should really check what the status of Moss is. Do you think if I just look at Moss Object Show, do you think I'll know what the status of it is? I think yeah, Mysterious Object Super is cancelled. Yes, okay, it is indeed. It's not a thing that's ever going to that we're ever going to see again, which is unfortunate. However, it's how it goes. At the end of the day, I feel like with object shows, realistically, this is the expectation. It's very rare that we actually get to see one of these fellas stick around, which is unfortunate. However, it's just the way that it is, right? But yeah, we have ourselves some fellas. Apparently, AirPod, it just has a shit ton of money. They just have a shit ton of money. They apparently got these sunglasses for $200K from the city over there. Because yet again, it cannot be an object show without characters that mysteriously, for some reason, live in grass. They're not allowed to go to the city that's far away, and they don't want to be there for some reason. That is every object show ever. Why? I don't know who decided this. It was just a global agreement that every object show needs to have a cast of people who for some reason are in grass instead of the city. I don't know. There's always a city. But yeah, they're doing something. And then eventually we end up having the setup for the elimination, right, as Smear Frame eventually gets recovered. So yeah. Because they died every time. Why did they die? I remember. I kind of do. Not really. Oh yeah, they go out by lightning. I remember. So yes, they go over, fly into the sky with some cool, badass looking platforms. On the TV screen, ends up having our elimination. 2,560 votes. This is not a difficult elimination at all. In fact, there's a dynamic contest very easy to spot. With 2,000 votes, AirPod is eliminated. That means that they get more than triple the votes than everybody else combined. Which is insane. That's just an insane quantity. But it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, obviously, duh, right? I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, a lot of people go like, yo, why do mean characters keep getting out in objects so super early? And it's because, at the end of the day, AirPod's elimination, you can say, oh, it's another case of viewers voting out a mean contestant. But at the same time, why wouldn't you? Because, AirPod not only is a mean contestant, their meanness and lack of willing to listen is the reason why their team loses as well, right? Which means that, beyond that, it's just kind of one of those things where it's there is no reason to not. That's why mean characters at the end of the day get out, because they do brash things, and then when they're up for elimination, their brash things backfire on them, right? So then it's like, oh, you shouldn't eliminate the contestant who did the worst and was the meanest because they were the worst or were the meanest. Well, I mean, then then it'd be better to just have the elimination system be a random number generator if that's the type of logic that we're playing with, right? It's kind of one of those things that's like, bro, I don't know. I think it's kind of. I think it's kind of weird, right? But yeah, AirPod's elimination is 100% fair at the end of the day. It's predictable. It's predictable for a reason. And it turns out that the orb of power lets them disintegrate and upload to the system as an eliminated contestant, and their platform redowns, and then they get to drop in. So with that, it is time for the next challenge. Challenge: collect a fish. It has to not be minuscule. And as long as the fish is not minuscule and it is submitted to me, you will be safe. The biggest fish also gets an advantage in the next challenge. So, yeah. Yet again, you are banned from creating a fish yourselves. Why? I don't know. It's just one of those things, bro. You have a character with an ability only to not let them do anything. Just don't have a character with an ability. I will be honest, I do find that always a little bit annoying. I do find it a little bit of that is a personal pet peeve of writing, okay? Pet peeve with shows. They write a character with an ability only to have their ability be entirely blocked off. Then it's like, don't write that fucking ability then. Come on. But, okay. Anyways, challenge. We end up having a couple of fellas. Unity has a new asset in this fella. It's just the Unity logo again, but it's got a gradient on it now. Ooh. I know. Some spicy stuff. And yeah, the animation crew, I believe, is quite it's a different enough. However, you can tell that like it's different in a high level. You know, like there's a bunch of like like the animators that joined in. They're all like the tip of the tip, right? Like this one of those things where it's like these fellas are very good at matching styles. So yeah, the show is just keeps itself going. Although it's not like it's higher quality, but it's not like immediately noticeable. You know, it's not a super jump up in quality. There's subtle things here and there, right? That make the show feel higher quality, but like shadows and stuff. But other than that, I mean, it's relatively alright. Anyways, the teams have to fish. For some reason, they find this an incredibly difficult task. Like all the teams are like, "Yo, what should we do?" And it's like, "I don't know." And it's like, "Wait a minute." Like, you go fish, go make a fishing rod, put a hook, the thing that they do in the thing, you grab a piece of wood, put a hook on it, and then you fish. Like, it's not that difficult. I mean, look, it's difficult to do, like, in real life. I'm just saying it's not that difficult to do, like, if you're an object, because, the objects have all these crazy capabilities, like, I'm sure they can do that, but, yeah, Echo for some reason is super dismissive in this episode. They don't want to do anything, which is interesting because they wanted to do things before, but nah, in this episode they really don't. Same thing goes for most stuff. Yeah, the 8.8 Balls team ends up kind of dunking themselves all in the water and YOLOing. Then we end up having Barcode. Okay, so Barcode ends up apparently allowing them to go to like the thin dimension. So if you are super thin, you can TP yourself. You can like scan yourself, and you will enter this other layer, this other world. Okay, so the only fellas that are thin enough are Sticker, who's of course super thin, the foam, the floral foam, because they can squish down, and then of course Barcode themselves, because they are infinitely thin, and they end up entering this little world that's apparently super relaxed. It's on the other side of the equator, so that means that anytime it's night there, it's day here, and vice versa. So that's going on. Apparently Clover, while exploring, got the luck of finding the correct spot. Banana Juice ended up just kind of cannonballing it. Shapey doesn't want to get caught creating fishing. Okay, here's the deal. I mean, we did say that we can create fish. Okay, yes, but, like, because in the same way that last time you can create an umbrella, that's the main item of the challenge. However, I mean, you can create an external item. Like, you can create a fishing rod, right? Like, that's not, like, I don't know why that would be disallowed. But, like, you could ask, they would see, right? But technically, I wouldn't say it's disallowed, right? But, I mean, especially with how evil this fella has been about it, right? Being like, instant disqualification. It's like, okay, fair enough. I guess you can be worried about it. Yeah, Banana Juice ends up just eating themselves into the water, hoping for the best. They do actually YOLO and find a fish, so, that's fair enough. And yeah, last second, however, Clover ends up getting absolutely squished out of her mind by the cup of glass and yeeted back away, which apparently sucked up half of the magic from Clover. I don't think it goes to their team. However, it just means that Clover has half less luck. They become very dizzy. They become very lightheaded. And that's an interesting thing. You can just do that apparently. So I guess you just hold on to Clover if you want to get rid of their luck. But yeah, apparently we end up having the freaking Spinny be like, "Yo, we're sabotaging another team. That's scummy." It's like, "Yo, didn't you do that the other time?" And I mean, yes, but but like here, this bro doesn't defend himself properly, because it's like, no, in this time you didn't have to do that, because this is very much so a team challenge, right? Like at the end of the day, you're really supposed to interfere with other team. Like, you can, but it's not the mission statement of the challenge. The mission statement of the other challenge is directly, there aren't enough umbrellas, you have to fight for it, right? Like that is the challenge is that you have to get it from the other teams, right? So when you go in and grab the umbrella from Spearframe, no, that's what you're supposed to do for the challenge. You're not supposed to steal Clover's luck for the thing. So, you know what? No, Spinny's 100% right, and they end up backing out too early. Defend yourself! What are we doing out here? Come on, Spinny. You're disappointing me. But yeah, then we end up having Floaty, who finds a fish. Good job, Floaty. Inkling, after tripping, ends up successfully delivering the fish. And they're the first team safe. Gimble's team doesn't do shit. They're all completely lazy. I told you, this team's a disaster. But at least Gimble is motivated enough to YOLO it themselves. And they actually do. They manage to completely YOLO the challenge themselves. But pretty much, they don't even do much. They just YOLO the challenge. They just soloed the challenge. I don't know where they got a fishing rod, by the way. They eventually, they found a fishing rod because they managed to fish. However, I don't know where they got that from. They just found it. Which is interesting. And then there's Team Neon. So Smearframe end up having an idea where to go. They end up going, yo, let's go to the sky, because apparently there's a sea of clouds up there in the high above, and there's a skyfish, who's massive. It's like a massive fish. So they end up going over there, and they're the team that risks it the most, because they eventually bring on the skyfish down. The fellas don't, the host here doesn't actually understand what they're on about, because they're like, what, fish? You only go swim in water. What the fuck you on about? Which, I mean, I get it, but to be fair, like, you don't know anything about, like, much. You don't, wasn't this host born, like, 3 minutes ago? Like, I don't know. I think that you're here to analyze fish. Like, that's a fish. It's called fish. Go analyze it. You know, I thought that was what you're supposed to do. But, okay, I mean, alright then. We end up having, the team ends up being in quite a little bit of a problem, of a pickle, because furry bonds are falling off when trying to get onto the skyfish, which means that Smearframe ends up going down to try to catch them. And of course, Smearframe, the fella that goes at an extremely high speed, faster than anything else, obviously for plot convenience, they conveniently don't go fast enough somehow now to correctly catch the freaking furry ball. Bro, like, you telling me this fella was literally going at fucking supersonic speed in the last challenge, and you telling me they cannot go faster than the speed of falling when they were literally able to go supersonic? Nah, bro. This is convenient writing. This is writing for the sake of conveniency. This is not good. This is not bueno. That's what this is. But yeah, they end up going there. I will say that the designs of like the Skylands and the other lands, like the other world, where they end up finding a fish in the sort of acid water, barcode, freaking fluorofoam and sticker. Those two areas specifically look sick. Like, I gotta admit, they look sick. I will say this world reminds me. It's very exit coded. I'm not gonna lie. It reminds me a lot of the Forelands, like, the exit and that general area. But yeah, those outer places look sick. The general area, like the standard area, is super standard. So there's not too much to say about it. However, when they they go to see other locations, I think that it ends up being pretty solid. And hey, getting fluorofoam to do more of the like shape bending that they can do as an object, I do think is also interesting, because of course they have this inability to speak, so you have to make them interesting in other ways, and they're doing that. So that's good for the theoretical future. Don't about that. But yeah, we end up having the fish eventually get brought back, and they end up, of course, submitting it. In the other fellas, Unity ends up downloading on their laptop a vector of a fish. However, they have to render it, which they can't actually do on the laptop because it's not strong enough. So they just bring over the fish to the host. The host apparently is technology that's good enough to manage to render it. So they manage to do it, and they get safe by saying let's go. And yeah, they end up being the fellas, and yeah, I think that's roughly the status update of every team. My favorite line was definitely the fella going like, "My team is so lazy. Oh, I can take care of that," and then they just fucking shoot a fireball at their team for no reason. Okay, that might be the most hilarious thing, but in the show. I think so far, absolutely, that was my favorite scene in Moss. Okay. That was absolutely my favorite scene. That was so funny, cause like it makes sense for a host to do that technically, because it's like, yo, you're coming complaining to me, therefore, okay, sure, I will help you solve your problem. It's like, yeah, you won't be lazy if you're running around in the fire. I mean, I guess, like that's fair. And then pencil sharpener also using like their pencil, like when they get mad, it sharpens the pencil. Like they're doing what I like, which is utilizing the object's characteristics as an object themselves, which is something that they're doing quite a bit. With a lot of characters, like for example, the smear frame, the barcodes, those fellas, all of those fellas, like actually utilizing their object nature to make it work. I think that it's pretty nice, right? And in the meantime, the team that loses is this team, because they eventually try to just throw the fish over and over, and it does actually end up landing into the bucket after a missed throw, be it that Clover isn't capable of catching. Well, actually, Clover's missed catch doesn't matter. It's Sticker that misses a catch because they don't jump too high because of their over thinness. Yeah, which means that the fish enters it. However, the host doesn't actually realize it in time, so proceeds to try a last second moment. What they end up trying to do is they end up generating another fish, which upsets the host. They should have just had them notice it, because like at the end of the day, that fish was in there, man. Again, like this team is kind of stupid to end off their challenge, because like if you think about it, it's like, no, the fish was in there. The fish was in there. Okay, first of all, they could have just brought the fish. I'm sorry, they don't need to do fucking NFL passing. Like they don't need to do the basketball. You can't take a step forward without passing the ball. Come on, you can just get a guy and get them to run. Like it's not that complicated. Instead of having these dumbass throws. But none other than these dumbass throws, they end up having the fish in the bowl. So I'm sure they would have been able to be safe if they just told them, like, yo, we threw our fish in the bowl. Because, like, yo, did you? But then it's like, yo, you can't count them. Look, it says them, and you see their fish clearly. That means that we're the team. So, like, they would have probably been safe. But instead, they go out here generating another fish just in case when they reach anyways. Which then, if you were going to just generate a fish to run with them there, then why were you throwing this fish around like it was LeBron? Like, what is this guy? Like, I don't know. It was a bad final moment for this team. It was a global failure. Furry Ball is so relentlessly. I mean, I guess it was a tough fall, but like, I don't know. It was kind of it's a bit extreme now. But yes. This team is up for elimination. Who do I think would have been eliminated? Because, of course, I mean, we'll probably know what the results is. I'm sure they were shared. However, we don't, of course, know in terms of, like, episode 3 is not happening. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Like, who would get out here? Shapey did the mistake. For sure. They definitely made the mistake. However, I think they... Dude, will Shapey get out? I feel like Shapey wouldn't get out. Okay, you know what? I don't know who would have gotten out in this elimination. No Banana Juice. Not... Storybook didn't do much, I guess. They probably the character that did the least. And they're also so similar to Vesaurus that it annoys me. Okay, I'm going to say this. My prediction would have been Storybook. And then who I personally would have voted was Clover, because I still don't think Clover's interested. Just because you can suck out the luck of Clover, and instead of Clover being a character, just like, yay, I am lucky. Instead they go like, they're freaking incapacitated. So they're either annoying or they're useless. Right? So one of the two. They're either annoying but extremely useful, but not in an interesting way that we can see. Or they're just useless and tired and all the time have to be carried around. Right? So like, I don't think this character is interested. So I would have personally voted them out. But I don't think they would have gotten out. But yeah, it's interesting. I think Shapey survives because I think it's for pretty reasonable to technically have cheated there, especially like as a last resort. I think it was a very valid attempt there. Yeah. With that, and the final scene being the recharge where the fish gets thrown, and the final moment being I saw that popping up on the screen of our host. Moss 2 finishes, and therefore also Moss as a franchise. So, yeah, Moss puts itself in sort of an interesting position because, like, yeah, Moss 1 really was, I think, is a lot bigger as a video than a lot of people expect. Again, it was the record holder in terms of length for any video that size. And again, like, what's the ranking? I'm gonna tell you the ranking. Okay, so in terms of views, 6.6 million, if I'm not mistaken, is roughly Object Overload reboot. Yeah, that one's absolutely number one. Number two is currently Animatic, because Animatic got a big boost. So Animatic Battle 2 is at 5.6 million. Then there's the Russian Object Show, which has an episode at about I think it has 2 episodes with over the kind of Moss. I think it's like episode 7, episode 6, which have those high numbers of like 5 and 4. And then there's also the other thing. Wait. No. Yeah, it's just this. Like I say, it's just this. It was a big deal at the end of the day. It was a big deal. And as far as Large Guys Object shows, do I think that it could have worked? As one of the ones, I think that it worked. It didn't have it's too much identity in the sense where, like, there wasn't anything that, like, just immediately was like, this is Moss, right? Like, it was a large cast object show, but you need to remember, this is pre-animatic, right? Like, because I think that the animatic battle, I think, has changed the perception of this style of show so much, right? Because, like, this is BFB inspired more than it is animatic inspired. So then doing BFB but chiller, I think it's solid. I feel that this would have worked, absolutely, if they managed to find a way to make this function in the proper sense, right? Of having it get episodes, get stuff going. I do think that Moss could have definitely landed itself a pretty solid position, because it had a relatively unique spot at being like the main standout of the large cast object show sort of reimaginings in a more chilled vibe, right? Because BFB is kind of it starts to lean more into sort of insane humor with how 4 ends up being, and how a lot of things end up being random, and how it's kind of not crude. It's like kind of more crudely animated, right? Like it's supposed to be that. So this is kind of a more refined variant of the idea, right? A more like proper, like, oh, this is clean animation. The host makes sense, right? There's a more like it's a pretty refined section way of doing the concept, right? I think that it could have absolutely worked because, like, I'm thinking, I mean, even nowadays, it's like, what fills in this gap? And I mean, it's not that much, because, like, the main replacement for this in terms of the big option obviously was animatic. Animatic was the gigantic other show, but like that is also very much so insane. It's in its way of being, right? So like I feel that this absolutely could have had its own spot as a refined, as like what if BFB was much more professionalized. However, I think that of course, it realistically wasn't possible to do. I mean, like, again, episode 1 was 46 minutes. Like, you understand? Like, that time was rough. Like, at that time, we were having II be on an Omega hiatus, right? They eventually started doing season 3. I don't know exactly what the time of season 3 of II was. I think when did this release? This is in June. I think II season 3 was already happening. However, like it was roughly that time frame, right? And then not only that, right, like they have to start an entire new season because they had the other season was already on hiatus like 2 years, right? So they were doing that. BFB was like, I think had just split or was in the middle of like, no, they were definitely post split by that time because they were doing that. However, they were doing post split and they were still, and everybody was getting kind of pissed off because T-Paul was not fucking happening, even though they said, yo, we're gonna split the show, and they split the show, never happened. So like, you understand, the two shows both are busy doing a second thing because the first thing is taking too long because it's getting to a high quality standard that's too high, which means that like there's a general problem, which means that like that era was like the big dogs kind of fucking up massively, and then it's like there just was not, I think, enough. To be honest, there just probably were not enough solid directors, with like, they hadn't developed their qualities yet. There weren't enough animators that could do their work at the speed that was needed. There just was not enough, right? It needed like the quality that those shows demanded needed to rise, right? Like there just needed to be a more overall pool of people for those shows to pick from. I mean, I have so many animators. Like it's just one of the things was like, you needed to have a bigger pool of people. That way you could like kind of rise, right? However, at that time they had the pool of people that could do the quality. However, it didn't have enough of them to be able to do the quality in a reasonable speed. Which means that like those two that were already having majority of the high quality ended up absolutely struggling the hell out of their mind, right? However, this leaves that the other guys, right, ends up just being like, what the hell? Right, like the other fellas, it just kind of ends up going like they're just, it's so little to do, because like at the end of the day, we end up having, if one of the other shows wants to have this higher quality animation standard, the big dogs are struggling to get it done in time. How will the smaller dogs ever get it done within a reasonable pace? And it's like, yeah, I mean, the answer is that they just kind of don't, the answer is that they don't. And that's why I think so many object shows from the time pretty much don't exist. You'll notice, like, it's either the show, like the big shows in terms of like like how large they are. You'll notice they're either sort of like the shows that got pretty far in. They're either the original ones where quality wasn't as much of a concern, right? So they managed to kind of pump out an episode like 2014 and chill, right? Or they start to be a little bit more modern, right? Like the kind of animated battles, the ITFT, right? All that stuff, right? So like this kind of era, the amount of shows from like this time frame that actually stick around, kind of like that 2019, like that kind of BFB pause time frame, like BFB split, like the amount of shows from that specific time period that were started there and lived on is very little, because there just was not enough high quality standard to get the fellas to survive. At least that's my theory of it. I mean, if you think about it, like, let's look at Moss 2. How many animators were on this? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 animators on this. Which again, it's solid, but like, I mean, I don't know how many I have now, but I'm sure I have tons of animators right now. But like those credits are pretty large. But like, yeah, so even for this to happen within its 7-month window that I think happened Moss 2 after Moss 1, it still needed like a relatively large crew. But even then, like, it just, like, the stuff just took a while. This stuff just took way longer. I'm very happy, as somebody who was around back in the day, right, and saw how shows like kind of were struggling to get episodes out, right, on that split era, when I was originally in the fandom. I was like, man, it's really happy to see that now, for we finally managed to have the big guys acclimatize, and then the smaller guys officially capable of starting to reach the level, right? Not necessarily reach the level of the big two, because the big two have unlocked a new level. However, they have the small fighters, they started to pick up to a level, right, where they can at least match roughly the pace and quality that was getting done originally, right? Like, the fellas have stepped up a level and has allowed the floor to be clean for a new wave, right? Which I think is very nice. But yeah. Would I want Moss to come back? I mean, it's one of those things. Moss returning probably wouldn't do that well. Like, realistically speaking, like, would a Moss return be like a massive thing? Probably not. It probably wouldn't be worth it, realistically speaking. Because I mean, like, this is the January 1st of 2021. Like, it was a long time ago. It was just an extremely long time ago at this point. To where it's like, kind of, I don't think that Moss 3 will probably make enough of a wave to really be worth it. Although I do think that Moss 1 and 2, these two videos, they do hold up pretty well. So like, I don't think that like quality will be an issue. I think that it would just kind of be, it would kind of just be like, it probably wouldn't be worth it to have like this gigantic situation, right, going on. Would I maybe recommend doing a reboot of something like Moss? Maybe. I mean, I don't... Dude, I feel like Yeah, this is one of those shows that like it's in a weird spot where like it could return, and I do think that a lot of people would like it if it returned, and I do think it would do a good job if it returned. However, it doesn't have to at all, right? Like it wouldn't be guaranteed success if it returned. However, a lot of people would like it if it returned. You know, it's kind of like in that awkward situation, you know. I'm saying this entirely just as a theoretical, just like as a thought exercise, right? Like at the end of the day, the main reasons to why these shows are canned is mainly just because we don't wanna, right? Like that's the main reason. However, like it's just interesting to think about, you know, the theoreticals about like, you know, if wanna should, you know, in caveman speak, if somebody like if they would want to eventually bring it back, should they do that? I think that they could. Again, Moss 1 and 2, I think they hold up pretty well, so I think that like continuing on from there, probably pretty solid. I think that could Moss episodes get made faster? I absolutely think so. I mean, I think that, yeah, probably. Looking at how other shows are doing it, 3-month production window, I think I could definitely see it for a Moss if it got to be done nowadays, at least from what I'm seeing other objects should be capable of doing. With like a team of that size, so I think that I think that size or larger, right? I think that they would be pretty solid. And then beyond that, yeah, I don't know. However, in general, I think that yeah, Moss absolutely does not have to return. It's a solid component of a time. Right, like it's an interesting idea of a time. It's kind of like the one major show that happened at that specific time frame, and you can see how it struggled from the issues that were going on at that time frame, and it never got beyond too many episodes, which is unfortunate. However, hey, yeah. Do I think it's a relic? No. Do I think it could come back? Yes. Do I believe it will? Absolutely not. I really think that there's no way that this comes back. If it does, though, it would be sick. I'm not gonna lie. Because yeah, again, I think that it's pretty solid, and I think even nowadays, especially since large cast shows tend to rely a little bit more on insanity and less on like logical, like I think that like the Moss here was a lot more logical in terms of challenges and the way that the teams did it than a lot of other shows that go more on host being insane. So I think that it would still have a spot in today's situation. So hey, if you want to come back, I believe there's a spot for Moss. All right, but yeah, I don't think it's coming back. All right. For once, so we are actually significantly, you know, one big step into knowing more about shows. Let's do an outro. Alright, and that will be all for today's episode of Object Catchup. I mean, it's not a super long one, however, you know, I try to make the special not too long, because I don't want to add other stuff to these specials. Do you wonder, well, we did. Yes, but Jack and Jellyfy breaks all the rules. You don't understand? Jack and Jellyfy is God. You just, like, I'm sorry, you just God. Like, as an object show cover, you just have to cover it as soon as possible. I'm sorry, okay? It just has to be covered. And by the way, BFDI is not that long, so I don't think it hogs up that much, right? But hey, and also, you know, I thought like it would be fair because Moss didn't have too much to discuss with anyways, right? Like if it was a big show that took like that 3 hour, like that took like 2 hours or 3 hours, then I probably wouldn't include BFDIE. However, you know, I could have, right? Because Moss was only 2 episodes at the end of the day. So yeah, yes, we are truly one step closer. The next special will be at episode 100. Well, I covered episode 100. I don't know. We'll kind of have to see what the situation is at episode 100, we'll just have to see. Like, I would like to do something really big for it. However, like at the end of the day, it just kind of depends on what the situation is around those days. You know, because if I'm not available at all, I mean, I still want to get videos out, but like, I don't, you know, want to spend too long blabbering on. So I guess we're gonna have to discover what the hell happens at episode 100. However, for the meanwhile, yes, that was episode 75. For Moss, for BFDIE, we're currently all caught up. See you next time. Goodbye.